Charlie's not here. Our captain.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Rehoboth Beach Environment Committee meeting. It is Friday, March 17th. I call this meeting to order at 10:30 a.m. I'm going to do a roll call. Ms. Carolyn Diefendorfer.
Here.
Ms. Nettie Green.
Here.
Ms. Heather Metz is absent. Ms. Catherine Bergwin is absent. Mr. Joe Vesio.
Here.
Mr. Eric Seward.
Here.
Ms. Mary Peck.
Here.
And Mr. Charlie Garlow is absent at this time, and the chair is present. We do have a quorum and can conduct business. We've got two sets of meeting minutes that were distributed and I think revised and resent out. Those dates are December 16, 2022 and February 16, 2023. Are there any comments, questions, revisions?
I do have one comment, and Joe, thanks for being our secretary and revising all these minutes and everything. I really appreciate it. In December, I was asked to come up with a proposal for the plastics and straw-free initiative, and that was not included in the minutes, and it was to be for the January meeting, which we never had.
Nettie, well, and Edward also, what I noticed, I wasn't at the December meeting,
Yeah, I know.
but when I went to look at the recording came in late and ended early, so there were some parts
Yeah.
that I wasn't able
Yeah.
to, I don't think, it wasn't the bulk of the meeting, but it did cut off a little early.
All right, I will look into that, but do we want to approve the minutes with the addition of Nettie's comments, or do you want to see the change before we vote on it?
I don't have to see the change. It's as long as we can put it in. Yeah.
So it's looking like I would need a motion to approve the December 16, 2022 and February 16, 2023 with the addition of Nettie's charge for the single-use plastics in the December 16th meeting added to those minutes. So I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adopt the approved minutes from December 16th and February 16th. Any further discussion? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries, and the two meeting minutes are approved as revised. I don't have any correspondence identified for this meeting. I will update you at the last commissioners meeting. I submitted the two recommendations that this committee made. One was on the offshore wind farm, and the other was for the gas-powered lawn equipment. And then we've not, that's been introduced to the mayor and commissioners, but we've not yet set an agenda date to discuss them. So I will let you know as soon as that is scheduled. With that, first order of business is discussion, presentation, and potential vote regarding straw-free initiatives and other related items such as prohibitions on certain single-use plastic, styrofoam, and including any discussion with the failed House Bill 134 and new House Bill 51. So if you could pull up the screen, Ann, and Nettie, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. I'm okay here? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read this. We've been working on this ever since our committee began, and it is a very old topic that it's a small change, but a big change. And we were pretty thrilled when the state came up with the first House Bill 134. And then again, this has come up with the Senate bill It's a Senate bill, which is 51. And so it's quite exciting, and my feeling is that it would be fantastic if the Rehoboth Beach commissioners could move on this. Of course, the date that I put was to be proposed in January. So it seems rather abrupt to say Memorial Day to accept this, but it also would be fantastic, and it would give the state impetus to me. It would be our stepping up to the plate, and I would think the state would just be thrilled. And, you know, it could happen in the state, particularly with our leadership.
Mehdi, could you maybe just articulate specifically what the recommendations would be?
Okay, I will just read it. Analyze observations by the city staff. Let's see. Okay. Police commissioners of food service establishments, the presence or the absence of disposable plastics and polystyrene in the city, the boardwalk, the beach, and the waterways. And then if you could continue that.
The recommendations, I think he wants you to go over.
Okay, the recommendations, okay. Rehoboth Beach commissioners will take the bold step of accepting the wisdom and the research done by the Delaware Senate in making Senate bill, I guess I have Senate bill. I thought it was a Senate bill, not a House bill. Okay. 134, an ordinance effective for the city of Rehoboth Beach. This ordinance will become effective on Memorial Day, May the 29th, 2023. The Rehoboth Beach commissioners will contact the Rehoboth Beach Chamber of Commerce. I don't know what ERE, I'm sorry. Rehoboth Beach Main Street and SOLA to ask them to inform food service businesses to this effect. Rehoboth Beach commissioners must decide and institute the enforcement for this ordinance. I mean, how it would be enforced.
So I just want to get to the sort of the nitty-gritty on exactly what the restrictions would be going into the Senate Bill 134. So the restrictions would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nettie, you're saying the restrictions should be exactly what was in the Senate Bill 134, correct?
Yes.
So any food establishment may not provide single-service plastic straw unless requested. A food establishment that provides straws must strive to ensure that single-service plastic straws always remain available upon request. A food establishment may not provide single-service plastic coffee stirrer, cocktail pick, or sandwich pick to a consumer. A food establishment may not provide ready-to-eat food in styrofoam, and food establishments are encouraged not to use or sell food packaged outside of the food establishment in styrofoam containers.
Yeah.
So this is very limited to straws, picks, sandwich picks,
Stirs.
and styrofoam.
Yes.
It's not addressing any other single-use plastic items, correct?
No, we need to deal with that later. We're not talking about coffee cup tops and so on, because that's another deal.
All right, let's open it up for discussion.
Does anyone know what the status of the state legislation is currently?
Senate Bill 51, that's the new number, is awaiting consideration. So it's been introduced, but it's awaiting consideration. And the date they have in the new Senate bill is July 1st, 2025. When I read this, my concern was, I mean, Edward, correct me if I'm wrong, the absolute soonest this would ever get to a commissioners meeting for a vote is probably April, and that would be aggressive. And then to tell them that they have to be ready for Memorial Day, I personally have an issue with that. If they have product on hand, you don't want them to have to throw it all away. So I have a concern with the timing.
Yeah, well, this was to be presented
Right.
at the January
Right.
meeting.
But I mean,
But still,
that's
it is,
order,
it
you
is
know.
aggressive, sure.
Yeah, and
And
I
I think a
don't,
different date.
you know, the restaurateurs have had to deal with, you know, trouble getting help, increased wages. You know, I don't want to put them in a situation where they have to deal with, you know, product they can't use. I mean, I do think it would be very simple to, at a minimum, immediately go back to straws available upon request. That to me is simple, and have the other pieces come at a later date that is fairer for the business owners.
And the education that we initiated happened with the straws upon request. So people are well aware of that, and many people agreed to it, and then, of course,
right.
went back on it.
Right, and
Yeah.
there are new restaurants in town. They would all have to be made aware of it. But I think that's an easy one to go back to,
That's a very
straws
good point.
available upon
Very good
request, and maybe
point.
just reminding them.
And then maybe the other, and is your feeling, Carolyn, like this could be initiated for Memorial Day, the straws upon request?
I think so.
I do
mean,
too.
I think
I do
that's
too.
fair.
Yeah,
The rest of it, I would probably at this point say January 1st. Just to, you know, to
Yeah.
be fair with them. And
I would
don't-
agree with you.
I
Yeah.
don't know if they can get the non-styrofoam items from their same vendors. I don't know if anybody has to go out and find new vendors. But it would give them time for those kinds of things.
Yeah. I still feel very strongly that, you know, but I think that this should be accepted, but I think that's a good suggestion, just to do the plastic straws and then the other January. And then again, this would be Rehoboth taking the leadership before the state, like you're saying, 2025.
Right.
It did strike me as I was writing this proposal and looking what other states did in the research about styrofoam, the polystyrene, which is the technical name, that this not only trashes our world, the styrofoam, but it also has become part of our systems.
Right.
And when we're drinking a hot drink in styrofoam, that we're actually imbibing, we're actually taking in the polystyrene in microbial amounts, which is a carcinogenic, and it's also other animals too. So polystyrene is huge.
Nettie, it might be worth a discussion with Rehoboth Beach Main Street to have them survey all the members to see exactly, you know, what percentage of their inventory is plastics. You know, do they have a mix of plastic and paper at this point? Just to see what the status is, and that could influence, you know, the date that this is enacted too.
I think we've done a lot of this, Joe. When we went around
Yeah.
with the plastic straws, we noticed that lots of food establishments were using paper straws and using the recyclable clamshells. And we noticed that as we were going up and down and doing the education before. So, yeah.
I think a survey is good, because Main Street does have some new technology that would allow them to do a survey and get results back.
Okay.
I agree with Carolyn that I think it would be great to go out with a straws upon request for this summer. That we've already done a lot of groundwork on this concept and on the voluntary basis, and if we could get that as a city ordinance, that would be wonderful, and then transition to the rest, for maybe 2024. I would agree with that.
I would too.
Someone want to summarize the step forward?
Okay, could it be put in terms of a motion? I can't move because I'm not
I think
able to make such a motion.
maybe the path forward would be for a final report like we do with the other things for the commissioners to look at, where we change your concepts, Nettie, to say that just in terms of the dates that we would propose for this summer to have a straws upon request rule, and then do the other items for 2024.
Okay. I don't really, after going through all the 5 different things and summarizing and everything, I guess, could we have a motion that it just be that way? And, we could just change the wording so it could happen that way, because I'm really not into going through completely rewriting this proposal. It's just, I'm not the lawyer that can do this. So, I don't have that kind of time. It took a lot of time just to go through all the different things that have to come up to the, but could we just change that? I'd be glad to change it, but I don't want to leave here without a motion that goes before the commissioners.
I think everyone's in agreement that the straws would be fine to initiate before this season, and January 1st would be appropriate for the other items. But I also heard from Carolyn and Joe sort of another aspect of this, and that's getting input from Main Street and its members. So
Exactly. Perhaps our initial thing is straws for this summer, and then we work with Main Street to try to get a survey of the restaurants that are their members, on some, additional questions we have concerning maybe their inventory, that kind of thing, and follow up after that.
any comments from the members of the public? If you're going to say anything, Mike, just come up to the microphone.
Hey, guys doing? My name's Mike.
Thanks, Ann.
My name's Mike Venanzi. I'm one of the partners above the Dunes in Rehoboth. Just to add on to a few of your discussions, I think these are all good discussion points. I just came back from California late yesterday, and every single bill that I paid for in California had a 3.5% surcharge. Every single restaurant I went to for items just like this. for implementation just like this, for the cost of switching to paper goods instead of plastic, for the cost of throwing out inventory, for the cost of incredibly increases in food costs. Every single place, whether it was McDonald's, whether it was fine dining, whether it was a small taco place that had a little shelf in San Diego. So while I think all these are good, I have two questions. My first is, why are you stopping at this? I don't understand why we're not addressing, lids on coffee mugs, why we're not addressing everything all at once. And number two, you talk about inventory and throwing away. I can assure you 90% of the restaurants in Rehoboth have already geared up for the summer, and our inventory is at full max for things like plastic straws, plastic picks for, so that you can make sure your medium well burger comes out medium well and you didn't get the medium rare one that sat in the window because we can't identify it. Or you didn't get the shard of wood that comes off from the wooden bamboo sticks that we put into things because they char and they break off in products, which is why a lot of people don't use the wooden picks and they use plastic. So small things like that make a big difference to us in the industry. Rehoboth Main Street, I'm also a member of Rehoboth Main Street on the board, I guess you call it, or whatever. We just did a survey. There's a survey that's about to go out in a few weeks, I believe. So if you are considering that, time is of the essence, and I would contact them because they're putting together a Survey Monkey, like I said, right now. And to get a few questions on that would be good versus sending out an additional survey that people probably in the next couple weeks to a month will pay no attention to. We're just too busy. So that's just my perspective on it. Like I said, I fully support it. I think styrofoam, I have a son that's an environmental major. I think styrofoam is useless in this world. I think if you want to make an immediate step, you get rid of styrofoam right away and then work on some of these other things.
Yeah.
So, just my thoughts.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
The straws upon request, do you think that's a big deal?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, not at
Okay.
all. The only thing I would say is how do you enforce it?
Well,
That's the
right.
only issue.
Right.
From my standpoint, as you see, servers always have straws with them. We do get complaints that, I don't want to drink out of a plastic cup that's been used by 30,000 other people, even though we do have sanitation systems and everything else, but that's become a big thing since COVID. No one seems to want to drink out of a cup that doesn't have a straw. But I see no problem at all with implementing you can do that before Memorial Day without a problem, upon request.
Good.
People can make little placards to have places just so people are informed.
Good.
I think that's a good start.
Yeah, yeah.
I know
Thank you.
last, was it last year we were distributing the placards, the table placards?
It was probably the
Straw-frees.
year, it was probably the year before because we were in the middle of COVID. Yeah.
Every business I went to they were very enthusiastic
Yeah.
about doing it. So I
Yeah.
don't think it's a question of anybody
Well,
accepting. I think it's an
often
easy
the
pass.
businesses we spoke to, Joe, were, we were sometimes speaking to the employees rather than the managers. So there was a lot of enthusiasm and, but yes, I think we would like to deal with all of these things all at once. In fact, our whole committee began with kind of the horror of all of the plastics that we're trashing the world with. And of course, we'd like to do this all at one time, but like I said, it's a small thing, but it's a big thing. And it does have to do with money, and unfortunately, change, we're going to have to deal. We're going to have to find better ways than the shards that stick in the hamburgers, But, so I really appreciate your sharing. Thank you.
Mike, I have one more question. I'm sorry. So would a January or early next year date for getting rid of the rest of the plastics, would that be doable, do you think, to most businesses?
Yeah, I think that's feasible. When we went through last year, I think it was last year, was a big push for switching things over. And the problem isn't as much the restaurants making the switch over. A lot of times it's our suppliers. Adams Birch, our paper good companies, a lot of them just don't have the product. And believe it or not, it's probably anywhere between 3 and 4 times the cost in most situations.
Sure.
To go from a plastic clamshell to a paper-made clamshell, it's probably a difference between, a couple, $3.
Yeah.
So that's why you're seeing a lot of people pass those costs on. If you also see some in Maryland, I've noticed, if you order to-go, there's a surcharge for to-go products because of the additional cost of these kind of containers.
No.
I mean, you know, we deal with food cost, liquor cost, and labor cost, right? If you think about those, every single one of those has gone up. That's the only 3 things you deal with in a business.
Yeah.
Food cost, liquor cost, and
We're
labor cost.
addicted to plastic.
I don't,
Continue to increase those 3.
Yeah,
We can do it, right? But the problem is you're going to pay $27 for a hamburger,
yeah.
right? So you can't keep
Getting close
absorbing
to
all
that
those.
anyway.
and I don't remember which restaurant it was. I was looking online last night, and when you went in to do your order, if you were doing a pickup or takeout, it popped up on one of the restaurants that they were going to add X, and I think it was a dollar amount. I don't think it was a percentage, I could be wrong. They were going to add a dollar amount to your total
Yeah,
for the increase, for the containers.
yeah. And that's something
Yep.
you hate to
And-
do, but like I said, eventually,
Right.
you just can't continue to absorb
Right.
all the costs that we've absorbed.
This is true, but one of the things I've noticed with bags, which is a law that we passed in Delaware, many establishments are charging for bags, and I'm behind the people in line, and they sure put the extra charge on, you know, and so I think people are willing. I think people want this change and are willing, and eventually, hopefully, with competition, we'll get the prices down and be able to produce these things more efficiently. Yeah, but this kind of change doesn't have to do with money. It has to do with the earth. Yeah,
Well, there's mixed, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you can Google search 70 articles and 35 will tell you that it makes no difference, and 35 will tell you that it makes
Yeah.
a difference. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But like I said, we'd support whatever. It's just that we can't enact things, tomorrow. And I think that's one of the things we do a lot is the lack of perspective of let's make this change and let's implement it right away. And it's like, well, we can't. It's like when you give us notice, all of a sudden we can do outdoor seating and you got, a week to implement it. It's like,
yeah.
how can you do that? So, but we'd love to work. I mean, I talk to the restaurant owners all the time as an owner myself, and we are willing to help. We're willing to make things happen. We're willing to work together. But it's just sometimes we gotta just get feedback.
Yeah.
So I'd like to build on that. So I'm not sure what was the prior work that we did as a team with that group, the restaurants, but we've got someone here, right? So that's willing to allow us to do with the straws, but I'm a big component of let's work together. Let's come up with something together between what the restaurants want to do and what's feasible for them. I realize you take baby steps, right? You take one step or whatever, and you get what you want, and then maybe we go another one. But at least we have a member here that maybe we can partner with this group and try and get something enacted by January, so that we're doing this together. And it sounds like we've got the guy here that wants to do that, so I'm just a big component on that.
And maybe deal with what you said at the very beginning, which is, why don't we do the whole thing? Why don't we just kind of pussyfoot around what we're doing? And let's talk about plastic water bottles. Let's talk about, plastic tops let's be creative. Let's come up with, working together, how we can deal with these plastics that we're trashing the world with.
And Rehoboth Main Street would be a great partner also with all that. And, they do amazing work. Sometimes I say they're the only ones truly dedicated to our business, helping us every day. I wish there were more, but they do an amazing job of helping us, and they are a huge asset to the business owners in Rehoboth. So I can't not give them kudos to what they do. And that's an entire, like you all, that's an entirely volunteer for the most part group. And the dedication there is incredible. So they are in touch with the business owners. They are in touch with what's going on, and they would be a great place to partner with and grab some of us to get together and help make these changes. I agree with you as far as longer term versus shorter term, and let's get it together, get it right, and get buy-in from everyone.
Right, because there's a lot of restaurants outside of town now, and so you kind of start with a quorum, and then all of a sudden they say, oh, this is how we're doing it, and it's this eventually, could be a, a good thing, so. But I think it's a partnership, and I fully believe in what you're doing, Nettie, and what you're saying, but, it's maybe just a,
And
to get it to work. So
Even-
my concern is enforcement, so we do all this, right? And we say all this by January, and how do we enforce it? So the enforcement is, let's get them with us. Let's do it together. But
but though we've been working on this till
I know.
I mean, forever, but the plastic straws, just doing the plastic straws, enforcing it, saying it is over, Memorial Day, no more plastic straws, only on request.
I like that.
Is small, but in another way, it's huge. And if we could make this public to the entire state, this would be leadership as far as, us in Rehoboth Beach saying that this is what we're going to do. It's small, but it's huge. Yeah.
And I don't think anybody disagrees. I think that should be the first step.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing is the committee wants to move forward with voting on the elimination of actively handing out plastic straws, sort of effective by Memorial Day.
Yes.
And tabling the rest of this to partner with Main Street and get more feedback from businesses.
Right. Yep.
Yes.
And full disclosure, I'm the assistant treasurer for Main Street. I'm a volunteer, but I can try to work with them to get questions added to the survey. Okay?
For this most recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what's
Yeah.
important.
I'll go back and look at what exactly was said, and I'll reach out to the folks
Great.
working on the survey to see if we can get some questions added.
Great, great.
Okay?
Okay.
And that survey goes out to who?
The members, and it's also going to go out to past members who maybe haven't chosen to rejoin. They don't have a way to really get to all the non-members because they don't necessarily have their email addresses of the owners if they have chosen not to join. But I believe there's 1,300 email addresses that it's going to go out to, somewhere in that range. And granted, not everybody is a food establishment, but the food establishments that are members will get it.
And I think just getting the questionnaire is going to signify to people that this
Right.
is a concern, particularly with the styrofoam, the
Right.
polystyrene.
Right.
That this is coming down the road, and it is a bill before the state of Delaware.
Oh, yeah.
So it's happening, yeah. And maybe that should be, brought out
Yep.
before the survey's even made, that this is going on in the state.
Well,
And maybe a question could be, is there a few partners or team members within that would want to work with this environment committee to come up with how we abide by the new laws and, how things are going to implement, so that maybe that's a question, if there's interest in that, a couple folks within that group.
Okay.
That would want to partner with us.
So moved?
Yeah, why don't we get a motion to that effect, if that's how the committee wants to move forward?
I move what you just said.
Okay.
I apologize, Ann, yes. I move that we adopt the proposal as Chairman Chersnowski enunciated, which is to, want to say it again, Edward?
Sure. So it sounds like we would be asking the mayor and commissioners to have an ordinance to ban the
Free distribution.
free distribution of plastic straws and make them by request only, effective by Memorial Day of 2023, and that the rest of the proposal would be tabled, and we'll partner with Main Street and other organizations. Is that what your motion says?
So moved, what you just said.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And the chair abstains. The motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Nettie, I will revise that proposal and parse out the pieces that we're not going to include to send to the mayor and commissioners.
I appreciate it.
All right, next on, any other comments on this topic? Mike, thanks for being here and giving your feedback. A few updates on offshore wind. As I stated in the beginning of the meeting, our proposal and recommendations have been sent to the mayor and commissioners. We've not yet scheduled any meetings, but I will let you know when it is scheduled so we can all attend if you so choose and get others to attend. But there's two other things that is happening this month. The Atlantic Offshore Wind Transmission Stakeholder Virtual Meeting, which is being put on by the Department of Energy and BOEM, is on March 22nd from 2 to 4. That is virtual. And you need to register in advance for that. And then BOEM's Renewable Energy Modernization Rule, which was, I think, sent out in the beginning or made public in the beginning of February. The comment period for that ends on March 31st. So if anyone's interested in either one of those things, I can certainly send you a link to them.
Could you send a link for this March 22nd?
Sure, yep,
Zoom?
will do.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Charlie, do you have any other updates on
Yes,
offshore wind?
for those who are interested in further discussions on offshore wind, the Cape Gazette ran a large article on the topic of the ACT, the Association of Coastal Towns, who met and further discussed this. My friend and a former US EPA attorney, Mary Stuart Douglas, was there and was quoted and testified extensively, favorably, and a lot of the other, as I understand it from the article, a lot of the other comments from the other mayors and representatives from the other coastal towns, Dewey Beach, et cetera, were very favorable of encouraging offshore wind. Of course, there are still the opponents who've been opponents for the last 3 years or more that we've been talking about these things. We're still there with their same opinion. So I don't know that anybody's position has been changed by that gathering, but a lot of interesting discussion. If you'd care to, we could send you all that link to that Cape Gazette article if you'd like to follow that discussion.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on offshore wind? All right, thank you, everyone, and I'll send that link out for the March 22nd virtual meeting. Discussion and any action regarding the non-idling policy. I kind of don't know where we left off on this. Heather Metz was sort of driving this, and unfortunately, she's had some personal stuff. She hasn't been able to be here the last few meetings, but I know she very much plans to be here in April. And I could not find the last draft that she had put together. Does anyone else have any?
I think when you asked Heather to start working on it, she had done a lot of background research on what other places were doing, and she had I believe she wrote something up with a lot of examples, but where we were, to my recollection, was that there was general support of the concept of anti-idling, but we never got into a real in-the-weeds discussion about how it would look for us and what would the exceptions be. Heather said, there were a lot of different exceptions that different places had. So I think what next step would be if we could actually, the committee would have something more concrete to say, this is what the rule, this is the proposed rule and how it would work and you know, really get into the weeds with it. So I don't know if Heather, if she wants to do that, I'd be willing to work with her or, you know, just have something for everyone to look at that says, you know, actual language of a ordinance.
Yeah, I
Ed, perhaps I can, the state of Delaware already has an non-idling they already have non-idling regulations.
Well, the state regulation only applies to tractor trailers. And so we are talking about for all vehicles. So that's been the kind of the thing. We've had a lot of complaints about in various parts of the city. We do have a problem with idling work trucks, landscape trucks, and even cars. But mostly, you know, I think it's like around the Royal Farms area. A lot of people who live around that area have complained to us about it, and they say, you know, the state rule doesn't apply. There's nothing. It's totally legal for these trucks to be idling, and so, you know, just by way of background, the city passed a resolution a number of years ago saying we are hereby resolved we are an anti-idling city. The resolution has no legal effect, and so we talked about just, and it's probably more of a just putting people on notice that it's now legally prohibited and putting some signs around some of the problem areas if we had an ordinance on the book. But the city of Newark is the only municipality in Delaware that actually has done, at least the last time I checked, has done an anti-idling ordinance of their own with support from DENREC and the state.
And Wilmington has one also.
Who does?
Wilmington.
Oh, they do now? Okay, and so, so that's, I guess we talked about this a couple years ago, so now we're just kind of bringing it back to our attention again, but we never got further than, that sounds like a good idea, but what would it look like?
Yeah, and I think Heather did do some good research, and she had some examples and stuff like that. I think we just need to put that into a format that we've used on other things recently in terms of an analysis to put before the mayor and commissioner. So,
And one of the things might be as simple as, I mean, I think there's 3 ways into town. Having a sign as you come in, welcome to City of Rehoboth Beach, you know, citywide speed limit 25, we are a non-idling city, or, you know, something like that, because people driving in for the day aren't going to know if there's nothing posted.
We have talked about
Yeah.
that, having signs, because I think it was Newark, or wasn't it Newark that put up signs and found it very
Yeah.
effective? Yeah.
They did say they
So
put some
we-
signs in
We did
certain
talk about
areas.
that, yeah.
Weren't businesses saying that a problem could be that refrigeration trucks that come in to deliver things to restaurants, that they were concerned about that, but that
Well,
might be
I don't
something.
think, yeah, I think under the state rules, if they're large enough, I don't think like a refrigerated truck is required to turn off, because it talks about, you know, traffic conditions or mechanical difficulty or conform to the manufacturer's specifications. My guess is a refrigerated truck wouldn't have to stop. But I can't
Right.
swear to that because I didn't go back and read the actual Delaware code.
But, so what I'm saying, though, is refrigeration trucks many times are either on Rehoboth Avenue or a nearby, an adjoining neighborhood. And so, you know, that's,
mean,
folks
they're
are going to
not-
complain about that.
Yeah, they're not dilly-dallying, though. They're delivering and moving on. I think the bigger issue, like you said, are the landscaping trucks. I mean, just to sit there with their truck running.
yeah, the biggest feedback I hear is that the restroom over in Grove Park people pull up on Henlopen Avenue and just leave their car running while they go in and use the bathroom, and then over by Royal Farms, people do the same. Okay, so it sounds like I'll reach out to Heather and see if she can articulate sort of the consensus of her findings into sort of an ordinance-based analysis that the format we've been using, and Mary, I'll offer you up as someone that could help her if she needs any, okay? So then we'll plan,
Another log on the fire.
we'll plan for sort of Heather to lead this during our April meeting. Excellent.
I might remind you, Edward, that I'd prepared a proposal on this a couple of years ago in which it was noted that Chris Coons' wife, that Senator Chris Coons' wife, had her car idling with the ignition key in it, and she came back and her car had been stolen, which is another feature that we ought to include within our discussions. It's a safety factor. It's a temptation to youthful joyriders who want to now get a black mark on their criminal record history, which we don't need any more of that.
Good point. Thank you, Charlie. Next on the agenda, this conversation sort of went in a different direction at the last meeting, so I broke it out into a new business item and old business, which is discussion and evaluation of the city recycling program, specifically in public spaces, including the Boardwalk. As you may remember, the Director of Public Works expressed some serious concern that most of the recycling has been contaminated, and if there's any suggestions that we could provide on making that program work better, signage, type of containers, evaluation of what other cities are doing that have less contamination, et cetera. And then under new business, I input a discussion item of waste to energy solutions that Eric, you had brought up. I think it was Covanta was the name of the company. Right. So I sort of broke that out separately for further discussion. So do we have any feedback that we want to provide for the Public Works Director on our recycling program on the Boardwalk?
First of all, I think we need, as we proposed in the first place, we need recycling bins at every single entrance to the beach. And this has not yet happened. I think it would be, and then, yes, I have noticed, in fact, just this week, I decided to do a survey, a personal survey of walking down the Boardwalk, and I noticed that there were not pizza boxes in the recycling bins, but there were paper cups, and paper cups with plastic on top, mainly, and of course, probably because people aren't eating pizza right now. But I'm the contact person with Rehoboth Elementary School. I would think if we could get recycling bins at every entrance to the beach and have it right beside so you don't have to walk to recycle. And then we could have the kids, and they could do this before they leave school. If we could have the city provide for laminating what they do, because they have a terrible lamination machine at Rehoboth Elementary. They could come up with some signs about no pizza boxes, no paper cups. All we want are cans and bottles. And kids would do a great job at it. And we could do posters that are big enough to be seen if the commissioners could, if we could have enough money to recycle these posters at Staples or wherever best place is to recycle them. Those are just suggestions.
I think, Carolyn, maybe you brought it up at a previous meeting that if the recycling bins were clamped shut so that you couldn't
Exactly.
get bigger things in
You
them, right?
can't get you cannot easily get a pizza box in those.
That's right.
They're having to take off the lid to do that.
Yeah.
So if the lid was somehow secured, I think that would go a long way.
And frankly, I don't think that would be hard to come
I
up
don't
with
think it would be either.
some type of a clamp that only the,
Yeah,
you know,
or
that you have
almost
a
like a
key or
bungee
something.
cord type of system. I mean, people are not going to go out of their way for that. I do think they need adequate trash cans too, because I think where the big problem was coming in was trash can overflowing, not another trash can, and they're not going to take their box with them, and they're not going to, and they don't want to just throw it on the ground.
And I did notice that I looked at the trash too, and there are no cans, so kind of an opposite success, but there are no cans and bottles in the trash.
Right. Right.
So I thought, okay, so there is some acceptance
Yeah.
there, but it's just, oh, well, maybe this can be recycled. It's a paper cup, you know, and but I really do think the posters would help if we could affix them to every one of these and enough trash cans and at every single entrance to the boardwalk.
Yep.
That
Yep.
Also, I think, you know, a lot of folks take their pizzas and their foods to, you know, to the beach, right? So, and I can't remember, I think, I was last year, I think there's just, they always just put just one trash can, you know, at where you entered the boardwalk, right? Yeah. So, you know, to take your ideas of notes and things, you know, everyone seems to go to the umbrella huts or whatever, whether we put a couple recycling stations right there by the huts, you know, on, you know, 4 or 5 of those main streets, because I don't think there's any way to recycle on the beach.
Well, I think correct me
but
if I'm
I
wrong.
may be wrong.
And Edward, maybe you can tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. I think part of the issue last year was a lack of help, that they weren't doing as much trash pickup right on the beach. They had cans along the paths as you walked down so that they didn't have to cart them as far, I think.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't last year, it was the year before. But I mean, I remember there being an issue where they couldn't get enough help, so they had to sort of change
Kevin did say
where
that.
they had their cans.
Yeah, so,
I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but that was certainly true at some point.
I would remark that just last week I did my own survey, thank you, Nettie, in which I saw a trash can that was marked trash. It had on it a semicircular covering thing with a flapping door
Yep.
so that you could push the door open and your trash would fall down. It's perfectly okay. Sitting right next to it was another bin that was marked recycling, had nothing on the top. And so it was very easy for, you know, people like me who wanted to turn around, jump shot, 2 points, all right, I got it in there, because it's this great big open hole. There was no covering at all that said recycling of bottles and having a hole like just 4 inches in diameter like you would hope or expect. If we
Was
were to
it a-
try that, I bet you we'd better get a less contamination in the recycling
Well,
bins.
they generally do have lids. I have noticed when it's really, really windy, sometimes the lids blow off. And you'll see them sitting down, like right down on the other side of the boardwalk. Because I've actually picked them up and put them back on the cans.
Thank you.
But most of them do have lids, you know.
yeah.
Must have been an off day when I was down there.
Yeah,
then.
either that or we have had some wind issues lately, I don't know.
I know when I first was asked about this, I did a little bit of research just, you know, of types of recycling cans. And I think, to everyone's point here, I think that we can make a recommendation to Kevin or those guys that we get some kind of cans like we're talking about, because they had like nice little stations exactly, and maybe we haven't taken it that step.
And I also noticed at the whole beginning of this project that in Dewey Beach, they have paper, cans, you know, glass. They had it all enumerated. I actually took a picture. And trash. They had 4 different bins, very crude looking. They were right on the beach.
But that's interesting because you don't have to separate anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's
But
single-stream
people, what I'm
recycling,
saying
but,
is
yeah.
people are really into it.
Yeah.
There was no contamination at all. everything that it said on the outside of the can. It was easy. People were more than willing, if the cans are available, to do this. People know about recycling. People want to recycle. Yeah, so.
Just some feedback I just got from Kevin. This time of year, not all of the recycling bins are out. During the summer, all of them will be deployed on the boardwalk. So if you don't see them at every street or every block, that's why.
Okay,
But during the summer, they will all be placed out.
good.
But I think part of the question was, if we have such a high contamination rate now, do we invest in more bins? Do we invest in having recycling bins on Rehoboth Avenue? Do we expand the program or not if it's not working? So I think that was part of the feedback that
I
the city
think we
wants.
expand it, and we have notices, either from kids or very official notices, that people wouldn't pay as much attention to. I think they'd pay more attention to a poster made by children, you know. I think we need to make it work, rather than say, it doesn't work, you know. So, but we haven't given people the opportunity for making it work. I think people are very willing to make it work.
It seems we've only had maybe one season's worth of information, so, you know, I think it's worth keeping it going.
Okay. I'll have a conversation with Kevin and kind of see where we can, and maybe Eric, I know you did a lot of research on this, so maybe I'll see if the three of us can maybe talk with Kevin and just think of some minor things that may.
If you want Rehoboth Elementary School to be involved, I need to know, because that would need to happen now.
Okay. I will get back to you on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments on?
Well, my only comment is, depending on our new business topic, they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, so.
Because I don't know that you need to worry as much about recycling if you can do this waste-to-energy program.
Well, let's just jump right into that topic then. This is something that I'm not very knowledgeable of, so Carolyn, Eric,
Well,
I'll let you guys kind of take it away. Is this even an option in this area?
So I kind of, you know, after we talked about it last month, I kind of developed some questions. I gave a phone call back to the City of Ocean City, Tina Henderson, just to come up with some questions, you know, like what your trucks do to collection, who transports it to Covanta, did you see a price increase? You know, was it a reduction in workers, that we could kind of present that all set? So, but to me, to the point, yeah, I think it is an option, and, you know, it's certainly the way that industry's going. You know, landfills are, we don't want to put, you know, landfills are going to be limited. But, so.
And Delaware's running out of landfill space.
Yeah, so to my point, I still would like to get together and have that discussion. I don't know how the team feels or how the committee feels, whether you give me questions, but I called Tina earlier this week to have this discussion with her, to further talk about that and see if it would be an option for.
And there's great information out on Covanta's website.
Oh,
I was
it's-
looking at it this morning.
It's,
They have good information, and I think the closest one is Chester, Pennsylvania.
it is.
And they will do tours.
What do
I've
they,
audited this
what do they recycle? I mean,
Well, they
just
convert,
everything?
they take all trash and convert it to energy.
Yeah, basically the heat from the incineration turns the turbines, which basically produces energy.
And
So-
it's,
so
if you look at their information on there, it appears to be cleaner than putting stuff into a landfill.
Doesn't this use energy to
Well-
convert it to energy? Yeah,
Well,
that's another,
Well, but, stuff going into a landfill produces methane gas.
Correct.
This does not really create methane, if I read it right.
Well, they're very scrutinized
Right.
by standards, for air pollution standards. They're not,
Yeah, if you
they're a
go-
clean energy.
And
It's
if
a-
you go out on their site, they have statistics from every day. I forget what they call them, but they're like 6 or 8 units, let's say, that do this, and they give the stats on what it's produced, what the gases are that are coming off and what they're allowed to have, and it looks like they're always below what they're permitted to have.
Well, and at a typical recycling plant, they're using energy to break down,
Right.
bottles, plastics, et cetera, to recycle them. So it's kind of a moot point as far as
Right.
the usage of energy.
Right.
to-
And if the city could start doing this, you might not even do a recycling program.
Right.
And so they wouldn't be paying Blue Hen.
We're paying an
Yeah,
astronomical amount
Blue
of
Hen is
money.
expensive. You wouldn't be paying Blue Hen on top of that.
And also, part of Covanta's program, which I did some research too, because I hadn't looked into it, was they also do the same thing. So we could continue to do the aluminums, the plastics. They separate that as well. They have magnets that reach over, collect their trash, and then that. So we could still, recycling, I think, like on the boardwalk, still looks good. That all looks good. We can
Right.
still do that. With this is kind of taking it to the next level. But
I mean, I think it's a great idea.
I think it would, I second that.
I mean, I would love to go actually do a tour of their facility and learn more. And
Yeah.
I would love it if Kevin would, be up for that.
I'd like to go down and talk with Tina, there in Ocean City, she's the head of the solid waste division down there, and take a look at that, talk, ask questions, is it feasible? Because of course, money always plays into this, right? If we're paying a lot, if it's an equal amount of money, reduction in workers and reduction in trucks and who we're paying Blue Hen insurance, and it equals out, then,
And I know there's been issues with residential recycling with Blue Hen because people put their stuff in plastic bags. They put stuff in that isn't recyclable. And I know there were discussions at one point about Blue Hen wanting to they're going to charge the city more if there's too much contamination of that. So you could get away from that.
Yeah, I think, as far as the public's concerned too, the easier you make it for people, the more they're likely to comply.
Yep.
If you have one bin on the boardwalk at every cross, rather than them having to figure it out,
Yep.
I think that's a
Yep.
plus.
So Eric, you say Covanta does some separation and recycling at their site?
yes, yeah.
How do they do that? The aluminum does not get attracted by a metal magnet.
I have it audited, it's been years, but I actually just went on the website and saw where they have separation on that, so,
Yeah, that's why we need,
I've
a
kind-
tour would be good, I
yeah,
think.
I did see that, so I can look at it again.
If anyone hasn't been on their website, they have a few very good short videos that give a very good overview of what they do and how they do it. So I would say look at that.
Ed, if we as a committee wanted to go up there and do a tour, can that happen with all the FOIA stuff?
We can't. It would have to be probably
like
no more
Kevin
than
and-
3
okay.
people from
Okay.
the committee, yeah.
Okay.
my only concern with this is we have summer looming ahead of us. And is this going to happen before this summer?
Well, no,
No.
probably not, but we're not going to
Yeah.
stop recycling before the
Yeah,
summer either.
yeah.
This might be something for the next budget year with the city, for
yeah.
example.
Yeah. But I still think these little things, like putting locks on them and having
yeah,
the-
no, I don't
I mean,
disagree
I
with
still think
that.
that's a good idea for this summer.
Yes.
But, and we're really not talking that much cost, but
Yeah,
this
this-
is very exciting.
The waste to energy sort of solution would be, that's a longer term
Yeah, Yeah.
a longer-term thing. But I'll start, as I talked to Kevin about the recycling program, we'll start some dialogue with the waste-to-energy solution as well, and just get some feedback from him on maybe the next direction and on where we go from there. Any other comments on that? All right, last thing I had on the agenda was, I know we've talked about it a few times, just to solidify some liaisons from this committee to other groups. I think it's important that as we talk about these things, it hits businesses, it hits other organizations, that we have a point person for each one of these groups. So I've got a few groups or organizations or other committees that I'd like to sort of have a representative reach out to. So when we come to a meeting and there's something that is related or could impact businesses, Carolyn, you're going to Main Street ahead of time and saying, hey, this is on the agenda. Do you have feedback? Do you want to send some folks to the meeting to
Which
to
is how
participate?
Mike ended up here today.
So first organization I have is Main Street, and Carolyn, I think you're just an obvious choice since you're on the board. The Chamber of Commerce,
I could do that.
okay. Joe, the Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee,
I think I had said I would do that before, but I wasn't sure what that, I haven't done anything, so I guess,
I will make an introduction with you and the chair of that committee.
all right.
SOLA 3, that's Savor Lakes Alliance 3. You may remember the Homeowners Association and SOLA 3 were pretty active a couple years ago in the single-use plastic stuff, and they had provided a lot of research and opinions. Does anyone want to reach out to them?
I can do that. I'm on the Stormwater Committee, so I've kind of made contact with them already.
Excellent. The Homeowners Association? Charlie?
Yes, homeowners association. I'm a member, and I should be more active, but this is one way of staying in closer contact.
Nettie, I had you down with partnerships with the elementary school. Is there any other organizations that we should make sure we're sort of connected with and getting feedback from?
This is outside of town, but I would really like to do something with our transportation, the buses coming in. It is where I live, out of town, dealing with buses that come in and the whole thing of streets and transportation in and out. So I guess I'd like to be on whatever streets committee or.
Ed's
I
the
don't
chair.
know.
Oh, yeah, I'm chair of the Streets Committee too.
Okay.
So Nettie, I'll put you down for that.
Okay.
Also, the Beach and Boardwalk Committee, a lot of times, we overlap with the same issues with them. So,
Anyone want to take that on?
Sure.
Sure.
I've been, not that they have them very often, but animal issues, I've been going to those.
Okay.
The Association of Coastal Towns may very well be meeting more frequently. I'd be glad to be our liaison to them. They may discuss other things besides wind, but it could be other topics of interest to us as well.
I'm going to put both of us down on that, Charlie.
Okay.
Animals, just Carolyn?
With the streets, I think would have to do with biking, parking, this type of thing. I guess that's all part of
It's all
streets.
part of streets.
Yeah, okay.
Streets and transportation.
Okay, good.
All right, I think that's good. I think that it's good that we're reaching out to people and getting feedback. So that's good. Future agenda topics. I've gotten a few requests from residents on light pollution, which I know the Beach and Boardwalk Committee talked about a couple years ago. And I don't think really anything happened with it. And the night skies.
Right, yeah.
I don't know, is that something that we want to
I think that would be
Bring up.
great.
Yeah, we actually spent some time on that and had a presentation about about that a year or two ago, where there was, with the 5Gs.
Yeah.
And how they were, Verizon was going to swap out the lights, but then it didn't happen,
And it
so.
didn't happen. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Yeah, and I still think it would be important to, I guess we can't put it on the 5G people, but I would think Heather Metz would have a lot of interest in this too. I mean, in the light pollution, I don't know whether she would or not, but I think it's very, very important.
Could I add to our list of topics, pollinator gardens?
Well,
We have a extinction going on our butterflies and other pollinators, and we ought to,
And I think that's probably that proposal is probably in final form now, right?
good.
Yeah, right?
I hope it's been presented. I don't know that it has been. I don't think I prepared it. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
have to look at that again.
I'd be interested in just a little piece of that committee with the education stuff, because we have a botanical garden in Dagsboro. We could even have a field trip down there with people, interested in native plants. And I mean, this is a world-class person who, Piet, can't remember his last name, but he was responsible for the High Line in New York City. And that's an amazing example, and so is the Botanical Garden. There's just so much we could do with education that we could offer people that come into our town and our county.
So Ed, I don't know if you want to, the email I sent you about an idea for next April?
Sure, I would go ahead and
Maybe I can just mention it and then.
just mention it, and I'll put
Okay.
it on the agenda for
Okay,
the next
so
meeting.
Next year, Easter is in March. It's on March 31st. So you've got Earth Day and Arbor Day in April. They're a week apart, essentially. And one of my thoughts was doing some kind of event in conjunction with those, maybe whether it be in City Hall or out at the bandstand, but maybe, stations, like how to properly recycle, maybe get somebody from Plastics Free Delaware to come, maybe do a community cleanup that day in conjunction with it, or like an Adopt the Beach program. I know that's usually in September, October, but maybe we do it leading into the season. Maybe somebody from Sola 3 would want to have a table. The city, correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, the city did get grant money to put a bottle refilling station up, but having,
I think that did not, I think that fell through.
oh,
It was through another state.
see, I thought they said at one of the last meetings that the money came. I don't know, but we were.
I'll follow up on
Yeah,
that.
because so one of the things they were talking about was bottle refilling stations, so maybe there'd be a way to buy a refillable bottle that day. Maybe Rehoboth and Bloom could do something with either selling flowers or seedlings. Maybe there could be information on how to do a pollinator garden or rain barrels and that kind of thing, but maybe an event in conjunction with Arbor Day and Earth Day next year.
What about a company that manufactures and distributes restaurant takeout containers and straws? And,
Yep, yep.
let the business owners know that
Right,
they're,
right. Maybe there's
out there.
there's a solar company on Rehoboth Avenue. Maybe they could do something on, have some set up where people could pick up information.
Okay.
Something about wind power, all that kind of stuff.
I'll
But
put it
maybe we
on
can
the agenda
look
for
at
the next
that
meeting.
as a possibility.
Gosh, I didn't know that had fallen through. The water refilling stations.
I could be wrong. I will.
Because
I'll double check and get back to you.
that
I
is
thought
so
Kevin said the money
important.
came in.
That is so important, like if we're ever going to deal with plastic water bottles, and which is our biggest pollutant.
Any other topics Any other committee member comments? I've got one thing, and Arbor Day. Oh, I'm sorry.
They usually plant plant trees somewhere, right?
Yeah, at the elementary school, and I'm looking for the date, and I think I messed it up here.
I think that's a great idea, Carolyn, because it's very successful. I know the cleanup days, I mean, just, people just come out in droves.
Yeah.
So if there's enough
Yeah.
publicity.
Clean up the streets.
Yeah, clean up, I mean, come to these fairs, people really participate in that, so.
So a bit of news, the city of Rehoboth Beach was just, was designated a Tree City USA again. I think it's our 32nd consecutive year. And the Arbor Day ceremony at the elementary school is on Friday, April 21st. So just keep that in mind. And any other comments from the committee? All right, with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 11:46 a.m.
Great,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.